Hello, welcome to my channel, or welcome back if you've been here before. My name is Beth Ann, and it is no longer the end of June. It's now early July, but as we've all seen going around BookTube, everyone is analyzing the first half of their 2021 reading and looking forward to the second half of their 2021 reading. So I do want to do a lot of the standard videos that other folks are doing. I plan to do the mid-year book freakout tag, and I plan to assess my quarterly stats for the second quarter of June. But I also want to do a video about failing a reading challenge because I've been failing a lot of reading challenges that I set myself in 2021. And that's okay. The whole point for me of being on BookTube is to encourage me to read, and I've been reading way more than I did before BookTube. So overall, I'm calling everything a success. And I don't really care that I'm failing these challenges. But I also think it's interesting how bad of a job I've been doing at following my TBRs and achieving the goals I set for myself. So for the most part, I still really like a lot of the challenges that I set for myself, and I'm going to try to prioritize them a little bit more in the second half of the year. So I'm actually not going to go into those challenges, but I do want to talk about the one challenge that I think I'm going to quit. And that is my Goodreads Fantasy Challenge. So I will link to the video in the cards and down below that I did in January, I think, where I announced that challenge. But basically, I was inspired by video by Mara. Oh my gosh, whose channel name I'm totally blanking on. I will link it down below. But she did a Goodreads challenge last year. And the idea was you pick a genre and you read the top 10, sort of ranked judged books by Goodreads in that genre. And I chose the fantasy genre. And the reason that I did it was I wanted to sort of catch up a bit on modern fantasy and what people are finding popular. And I've read actually several of the books in that challenge and enjoyed several of them. But there have also been some issues. So first I'm going to talk about a DNF, actually, which I have right here. I have decided to DNF The Way of Kings by Brandon Sanderson, which is part of my Goodreads Fantasy Challenge. This was not the top 10 last year in 2020, but the newest book in the series Stormlight Archives came out in 2020 and made the top 10 list. And since I hadn't read the earlier books in the series, I was substituting the first book for that later book. And I did that with a couple other things in my challenge. And I talked a little bit about this way back when I was actually trying to read it, but I essentially got to page 193, and I'm still just finding it kind of boring. And I see why people like Sanderson. The world building is incredible, but the characters are pretty lackluster for me. They're pretty boring on the page so far. 200 pages in, I feel like I should be getting invested in the characters, and nothing has happened. Which drives me crazy. And I love Robert Jordan. I'm very used to nothing happening for hundreds of pages. But I find Robert Jordan's characters more compelling than Brandon Sanderson's, at least so far. So I'm going to DNF this for now. I will eventually read this series. I think it sounds really awesome, and at some point in my life I will be willing to sit down and take it on. I think I might wait until all the books in the series are out before I recommit to this. So anyway, DNFing this. But then the other things I just want to talk about briefly. So just the books that I did read for this challenge were The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab, A Deadly Education by Naomi Novik, The Once and Future Witches by Alex E. Harrow, and The City We Became by N.K. Jemisin, which I actually read last fall, and I do intend to reread it this year because that was excellent. So I will link to various videos where I've discussed those books in a little bit more detail if you want to know what I heard about them or what I thought about them. And in general, they were all excellent. I mean, people on Goodreads rank fantasy well, in my opinion. They're missing a lot of other excellent things, but I enjoyed all those reads. But then just thinking about them and then looking at some of the ones coming up in this challenge, there are just some issues where it's like, these are fun, they're enjoyable, but they're not the type of books that I actually want to be prioritizing in my reading right now at this point in my life. So A Deadly Education is a good example of that. That was a really excellent book. I really enjoyed reading it. But there are some issues with some choices that the author made that have caused some controversy and some hurt for her readers. And again, I'll link to my video below. I'll link to some other resources online. Then the other one coming up is The House in the Cerulean Sea by T.J. Klune. which sounds amazing. I hear lovely things about it on BookTube, but I first heard about this over on Rosie Cockshutt's channel and in her May wrap-up video, which I'll link below, and I've since done a little bit of research for myself. And TJ Klune has said in interviews that the inspiration for sort of the setup of the story came from the genocide of Indigenous children of Canada and the US being taken from their families and put into residential schools. And so he's turned it into a feel-good, happy story. And on its face, there's nothing wrong with that. Like, of course, authors take inspiration from historical events. And in this case, I mean, it's barely history. It wasn't that long ago. And of course, we're still finding increasing evidence that's reaching national and international attention right now about that issue. But it's such a sensitive topic that is so timely right now. And there's just something about it being turned into a happy, light story. A white person is profiting off of it. I'm not going to swear off the book. I think I will read it eventually, and I'm certainly not judging people who are reading it and loving it, but it's just like, that is not what I want to pick up right now in my life. So that, sort of those sorts of things like kind of tinge this challenge for me. But yeah, basically, I feel like I've caught up a little bit on modern fantasy. There's some pros and cons. And I think for the rest of the year, I'm going to not prioritize that challenge. So I put up at the beginning, I put up sort of the spread of all the book covers. You can see what's in there, but just real quickly. So the other things that I'm choosing not to prioritize for the second half of the year are The City of Brass by S.A. Chakraborty, Stormfront, the first in the Dresden Files. Of course, it's way past the first one, but I hadn't caught up. House of Earth and Blood by Sarah J. Maas, Piranesi by Susanna Clarke, The House in the Cerulean Sea by TJ Klune, and then we have The City We Became by N.K. Jemisin, which is a perfect piece of literature in my opinion, and I might still prioritize reading in the second half of the year. So anyway, that is my embarrassing failure. I've been failing at that challenge, and I've decided to ditch it because it is not working for me. So how about you all? Does anybody else have like an annual reading challenge or a goal that you've decided to ditch at this halfway mark? Or are you all proceeding happily and productively through your checklists? I'd love to know in the comments. All right, that's all for me. I'll see you all in the next video. Thanks. Bye.